Molotov cocktail. Hello, Jacksonites. Welcome back to my first official video, aside from what I did last time. Me being back on YouTube after being gone for 6 weeks. So today I decided to start off with a bang. I decided, another thing that I did while I was on leave was I decided to kind of do some cleanup on my YouTube channel. If anyone's noticed, I went and updated a lot of thumbnails on my hang on one sec. Why is my chat not working? Fuck. Damn it. Anyway, so I did some cleanup while I was on leave on my YouTube channel. I gave a lot of thumbnails to a lot of videos that I've done since then. I deleted a couple here and there that I just thought were too dated or just poorly done. And I made, of course, a lot of future YouTube plans. And one video that I watched back while I was on leave was my top 20 favorite horror movies that I did with the Unigamer661 back in 2018. I rewatched it, and two things stuck out to me. One, the video looked like shit. Utter, complete, total shit. It was so glitchy. It was so pixelated. The audio was so badly captured. It drove me nuts. And I also noticed that a lot of my movies on that list, I don't even know why the fuck they were on there in the first place. So watching the near hour and a half long video, which was a total cringe fest, inspired me to redo this list and redo it properly. Now, I did want to do I did want to do this video with a guest, but he wasn't able to join, and I really, really, really wanted to do this video while the inspiration to do it is still fresh in my head. So I'm just going to do this by myself. But I have a couple tags that I want to do at the very end of this, so look forward to that. So without further ado, let us get into the redo of my top 20 favorite horror movies with a shitload of honorable mentions. So let's get those out of the way. I'm not going to talk too much about these, mostly because I have talked about a lot of these already. Starting with the 2005 Doom movie. Disclaimer, I am not including any zombie movies on this because I already did a top 10 favorite zombie movies video, and I feel like more than half of this list would be zombie movies if I was to do that. So I am excluding zombie movies. This is the only exception, though, because I do consider Doom 2005 to be a zombie movie. But I love Doom 2005. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It's my second favorite video game film of all time, or third, because Mortal Kombat was pretty awesome. And yeah, I just love Doom 2005. Next is Underwater. Again, I already discussed this. One of the best movies of 2020. For Kristen Stewart acting in this movie, she actually didn't do bad. It comes off as an Alien ripoff a little bit, yes, but when the movie is really, 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 really good, it's very good. It's got fantastic effects. It's got a really good story. It's got decent characters. It's got great scares, and the surprise appearance of Cthulhu at the very end is a great surprise. Honorable mention number 3 is the original Creature from the Black Lagoon. I already talked about this one too. I love this movie. This is probably my second or third favorite Universal monster movie. I wish we could get a remake to this movie done in color. Some would say, well, that's The Shape of Water. Sure, but it's also a glorified porn. Good movie, but I just would like to see a remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon. But fantastic film. Next is the 1932 Mummy, another one of my favorite Universal horror movies. Boris Karloff is absolutely great in this movie. I think his performance in The Mummy is superior to any of the work that he did in the Frankenstein series. Sue me. It's a shame there was never an actual sequel to the original Mummy, but thankfully we do have the 1999 remake of The Mummy, which I wanted to include that as well, but I consider that to be more of an action movie rather than a full-on horror movie, even though it has a lot of horror elements to it, whereas The Mummy can actually be legitimately scary from the original Mummy from 1932. Next is Candyman, a movie that I do appreciate a lot more than I used to. I've only seen the film about 3 or 4 times, but every time it just seemed to get better. And my exposure to the internet definitely has increased my appreciation for this film as well. And I am looking forward to this new Candyman movie that's coming out later this month. Yeah, Candyman is a pretty damn solid movie. It's probably one of the best 90s horror movies ever made. Even though I think I've gone on record as saying I think the 90s is the most underrated era of horror. But yeah, I definitely would say that Candyman is probably one of the top 5 best horror movies of the 90s. Next is the Invisible Man movie from 2020. This was a damn solid movie. I think this might be the best movie of 2020, in my opinion. I may have to eat my words on that. I can't quite remember a lot of movies from 2020, but The Invisible Man definitely sticks out to me as one of the best of that year. It's a really good reimagining of a classic Universal monster. It's got really good characters. It's got a really good story. It's got great tension and suspense. Yeah, The Invisible Man from 2020 is a damn solid movie. And the final honorable mention is the entirety of the Saw franchise. I've grown a much greater appreciation for the Saw franchise. I'm not a gigantic fan, but I do consider myself enough of a fan to say I eagerly await new Saw movies that'll come out in the next few years. Like, I'd love to see a sequel to Spiral. I would like to see one or two more Saw movies with Tobin Bell in them before he finally kicks the bucket. Yeah, I look forward to future Saw stuff, and yeah, I do greatly now appreciate the Saw franchise a lot more than I used to, even back when I did my ranking of the Saw series. So yeah, those are all my honorable mentions. To reiterate, Doom 2005, Underwater, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Mummy from 1932, Candyman, the 2020 Invisible Man, and the entire Saw franchise. Those are all my honorable mentions. So without further ado, let us get into the actual top 20. But first, a word from our sponsor. Oh, that's good. It is better cold. Well, at least chilled. Coming in at number 20 is Fright Night from 1985. Now, I've never seen the remake, never seen Fright Night 2. I've never even seen the remake Fright Night 2. I've only seen the first movie. And while I'll also be the first to admit, not a big fan of vampires, I find werewolves more scary. And definitely Twilight, much as my wife would hate to hear this, Twilight kind of ruined vampires, or at least has irreparably damaged them. But at least back in the 80s, we didn't have this bullshit romanticized vampires falling in love with the human drama bullshit. Vampires were actually portrayed as being scary, threatening monsters. And while this movie certainly isn't scary, it definitely is very fun and very entertaining, very well made, and very enjoyable. I love the 80s-ness of this movie. Oh my God, this movie just drips and oozes 80s-ness. If Trev was listening, it's not like the original Terminator, where, well, yeah, the 80s-ness there does give the original Terminator its charm, but with Fright Night, it embraces the fact that it's 80s, but also still manages to try to be try to not date itself so much. The characters are really, really solid. The acting is really good. The special effects are absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best practical effects in any monster movie. And I appreciate that despite the fact that this movie wears its Hammer influences and its Universal vampire movie influences on its sleeves, it still manages to feel like a modern vampire movie while obviously showing its gothic roots. And also, it's got a bitchin' ass soundtrack from Brad Fiedel. Holy shit. Brad Fiedel's music in Fright Night is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, Fright Night is a damn kick-ass movie. Directed by the same guy who would later go on to direct the Child's Play, the first Child's Play film, excuse me. And dare I say it, I actually think Fright Night is a better movie than the first Child's Play. Sue me. Coming in at number 19. Oh, by the way, I should state that this list isn't necessarily in any specific order. This is just a list of movies that if I was to go live on an island and I can only take a certain amount of horror movies with me, these plus the honorable mentions are the ones that I would bring with me to that island. Though the last 6 or 7 is definitely in that legitimate order. So like from least favorite to favorite. But at number 19, we have the Friday the 13th remake from 2009. I don't give a fuck what the haters say about this movie. Everybody criticizes this movie with, oh, it's just gore porn. The characters are boring. There's gratuitous sex, gratuitous violence. The story is simple. The music is generic. I mean, yes, but you can say that exact same thing for so many other Friday the 13th movies. Matter of fact, you can say all of those criticisms for the first fucking 8 of the entire franchise. At least part 9 was trying to do something different and breathe a new breath of fresh air into the franchise. Fuck. But I love Friday the 13th 09. I love its kills. I mean, yes, the darkness is really fucking annoying. If you watch the movie with all the lights turned off, it's mediated quite a bit. I actually enjoy the characters. They are kind of annoying at times, but they're also just kind of endearing. And the kills are really good. The effects are really good. Derek Mears does a really good job as Jason Voorhees. And its sequel tease bullshit ending is stupid and dumb. And it's been 12 fucking years. Why can't the guys who own the rights to this fucking franchise get their heads out of their ass and come to some kind of middle ground and give us some more Friday the 13th movies? Halloween is blowing up like crazy. Exorcist is getting a new trilogy of sequels, and apparently there's another Nightmare on Elm Street remake on the way. So why can't these motherfuckers pull their heads out of their asses and give us another Friday the 13th movie? They're not that difficult to make, obviously, because Paramount made the same movie 8 fucking movies in a row. But I love Friday the 13th 09. Definitely a huge favorite. Speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street, coming in at number 18 is Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I don't dislike the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as much as I used to. I rewatched the original first 2 films with Meadow not too long ago, and I actually found myself enjoying them a lot more than I remember. So I still dislike a majority of the franchise, but now I like the first 3 plus part 7 and Freddy vs. Jason, which will be on this list a lot later. But Nightmare on Elm Street 3, of the solo Nightmare on Elm Street movies, this is without a shadow of a doubt the best one. And I'm not saying that just to jump on a bandwagon, because this one is such a gigantic fan favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. At least 7 out of 10 people, maybe 6, but I'll just say 7. 7 out of 10 people will say part 3 is their favorite. Others will say the original. For some reason, others will say 4. But yeah, a lot of people love Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and it's not difficult to see why. It's very fun. This is the potential of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise reached to its peak 3 movies in, and then everything else just is garbage. But it has the right balance of horror and laughs. It's very fun. Its characters are believable and entertaining and relatable. The special effects, sometimes they're a bit shoddy, but the weird and nightmarish, no pun intended, look of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise kind of gives them that edge. Hang on. And you just kind of roll with the shoddy effects here and there. The music is fantastic. The action and horror scenes are all really, really solid. And in my opinion, this, aside from Freddy vs. Jason, this is Robert Englund's best performance as Freddy Krueger. And just in general, I think the best performance overall of Freddy, like this is the best version of Freddy of the entire franchise. He's serious and threatening, but also funny and entertaining to watch at the same time. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is one kick-ass movie. At number 17, we have the 1988 remake of The Blob. I can't fucking believe I forgot about this one in my original list. What the fuck was wrong with me? The remake of The Blob, I think in every way is superior to the original Blob. I've seen the original only once. I probably would like it a little bit more if I was to check it out now, because the last time I watched it, I was, I think, 16. And I wasn't really watching it fully, so I think I would like it more. But I already know I would like the remake more because it has a budget. Its monster is not so obviously fake. It's got better characters. It's got that action, but also severe body horror edge to it. And it's not nearly as dated as the original Blob. The 50s cheesiness gives the original Blob its charm, sure, but I think the remake of the Blob is fairly I mean, obviously, if you're to look at it, yeah, you'd say this takes place in the 80s. But it wouldn't so hilariously date itself as other movies like Teen Wolf or Fright Night, for example. This one looks pretty timeless. And it's, yeah, it takes a classic 50s B-movie Monster on the Loose plot, but it's another example where it's given a very gritty redesign and a shit ton more blood. This movie doesn't scare me, but some of its kills definitely, no pun intended, get under my skin because some of them are just gnarly and freaky as fuck. I love the redesign of the Blob itself. It's very mean and threatening and imposing and nasty. The music is really, really good. It's very creepy and very synth heavy, but in a good, creepy way. The characters are fairly entertaining. And speaking of Saw, Shawnee Smith from the Saw series is in this movie as well. Yeah, the 88 remake of The Blob is a kick-ass fucking movie, in my opinion. Coming in at number 16 is my favorite vampire movie, more than Fright Night, because this movie actually does make vampires scary again. 30 Days of Night. I think I've discussed this one before. Yeah, I have in my favorite horror genres video. This is my favorite vampire film. Twilight made vampires lame, but had this movie come out, well, no. I think this one came out before. Yeah, it did. Came out a year before the first Twilight movie. But had this movie come out after Twilight, because there was the Fright Night remake, which I agree with Boots to Reboots in saying a big reason why that film got such a positive review is Twilight made vampires lame, and this movie brought us more mean vampires to try to make them scary again. But had this movie come out after Twilight, I don't think Twilight would have been a thing. I legitimately don't, because these are the nastiest vampires I've ever seen in any vampire movie, bar none. These are some fucking, well, aside from The Strain, which I guess that apparently that's a pretty decent show, and plus the Netflix Van Helsing show. But yeah, from what I've seen, the vampires in 30 Days a Night are the nastiest vampires I've ever seen in fictional media. This movie is violent, bloody, gory, tense, spooky, suspenseful. It has a bit of a bleak ending, which is probably honestly my only issue with this film. But other than that, 30 Days a Night is a fantastic, fantastic movie. Severely underrated, too, in my opinion. It has a fan base, especially if you're a fan of the comics, which this movie is based on comics. But I still think it's severely underrated. It's just a shame it was followed up by a terrible, terrible sequel. Coming in at number 15 is the 2010 remake of The Wolfman. Unlike the 1999 Brendan Fraser The Mummy, this one is a full-on horror movie. I don't think it's possible, aside from Underworld, to portray werewolves in an action sense. And this movie, I mean, it's mostly just jump scares. There's a couple moderately suspenseful moments in this movie, but what makes this movie a horror movie, as far as I'm concerned, is its kills. Because not since An American Werewolf in London, which ironically, this movie does take place in London, parts of it do, a good chunk of it does, and also its main cast is mostly English actors. So I do feel like the filmmakers were. Oh, and also, I believe An American Werewolf in London is also a Universal movie. But I do think the filmmakers of the 2010 remake of The Wolfman were not necessarily, not ripping off An American Werewolf in London, but they definitely did have that film in mind when they were making this. The CG transformations, I wish Trev was here so we could talk about this. Kind of a precursor to the 2011 Thing. But when the effects are good, the transformation in this movie does look pretty damn gnarly and painful. The blood and gore is absolutely fantastic. The kills are gnarly. And I think this is the meanest werewolf that we've ever seen since An American Werewolf in London. You could almost call this American Werewolf in London 2.5. Even though American Werewolf in London did end up getting its own sequel. Shitty sequel. So anyway, yeah, the 2010 remake of The Wolfman, I absolutely love it. I was one of few people to see this movie in theaters. Which is a shame that this movie flopped, because I feel like this was Universal's first attempt to jumpstart a cinematic universe, but this movie flopped, unfortunately. And also, I do like that this movie does at first come off being very similar to the original Wolfman, but changing Sir John's character from being the loving father to being the werewolf himself changes the rest of the movie from that point on. So you definitely can't say that this movie is a shot-for-shot remake of the original. It wears its influences on its sleeves, sure, but I still think it does its own thing and tries to be unique and original rather than just being like a Psycho job from 1998. Number 14, we have A Quiet Place, parts 1 and 2. I can't differentiate between the two. I love both equally. I think these are some of the most original, and I do call them horror movies. They're some of the most original and unique horror movies to come out in the last 10 years. John Krasinski is definitely working his ass off to make these movies as good as possible, and I think his work succeeded. A great story, a unique premise, some of the strongest tension and suspense and music in any horror movie to come out in the last 15 years. Hell, I didn't think that this movie would have the same effect on me as the first movie did, but in theaters watching this with Meadow, I was afraid to grab my snuck in drinks and food out of my backpack because I was so afraid of making noise because I actually felt like I was there in the movie. So John Krasinski, like, dude, give us more of these movies, please. Like, make it a solid 5 movies. That would be fantastic. So yeah, I love these movies so much. I think they're some of the best horror movies to come out in the last 10 or 15 years. John Krasinski was definitely he took the concept of an alien invasion film and did something completely new and original with it, and boy does it pay off. And number 13 is Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. I fucking hate the Halloween fan base for hating on these movies. I absolutely hate them. This movie is just one of the most highly, well, even more so with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Hell, just to spite them. At number 13, I'm making it Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and Halloween 2. So both Rob Zombie movies I'm throwing on this list at number 13. I absolutely loathe the Halloween fan base for hating on these movies. How can you hate on these? Okay, if you're not a fan of Rob Zombie's music, then why the fuck are you watching his movies? It's that same fucking argument. If you don't like watching something, don't watch it and keep your mouth shut. Now, I myself am not really a fan of Rob Zombie's music. Not really a fan of his movies either. I've seen House of a Thousand Corpses, seen Devil's Rejects, and I've seen parts of Lords of Salem. Didn't really dig those, but damn it, I fucking love both of these Halloween movies that he's made. I wish he could have made a third one, but the Halloween fan base fucking sucks, so he didn't really get the opportunity to make his third film. But I absolutely love these movies. The kills are brutal as fuck. The gore is cranked up high. The soundtracks are fantastic, especially with Halloween 2. The performances are really, 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 really solid. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 does have its problems, yes, but I still do revere it as one of the best of the franchise. I think the Halloween fan base can go suck a giant gangrenous cock, straight up. If you dislike Rob Zombie's Halloween movies, keep your trap shut because I don't want to fucking hear it. I love these movies. My preferred one is the first movie because the second movie is pretty bleak and I don't think it's very rewatchable, but I still think it is a very, very good movie. But yeah, my definite first favorite, or my favorite, is the first one. But at number 12, Halloween 2018 is my favorite of the overall Halloween franchise. And is also one of my favorite horror movies. I knew from day one that this was going to be a favorite. And how certain individuals out there can dislike Halloween 2018 it baffles me as much as the haters that dislike Godzilla King of the Monsters out there. If you dislike that film and you dislike Halloween 2018, I am sorry to say you are just a troll. You are just straight up being a troll. Like one individual, I'm not going to name names. I don't want to start some bullshit conflict on here, but one individual saying the only reason I do think it's a good movie, but the only reason it's not higher than the 4th or 5th on this franchise is because I'm not nostalgic for it. What sense does that make? This is a phenomenal fucking Halloween movie. As far as I'm concerned, this movie was made by Halloween fans for Halloween fans. At first, I had an issue with them saying fuck it to the rest of the timeline and just sticking with the original and doing its own thing. Come to realize, though, the Halloween franchise, yeah, there's ones that I like. Like, I like 4. I like 8, as much as it's a bad movie, but I still enjoy it. And I like the 2 Rob Zombie movies. That's its own thing, though. But everything outside of that, the Halloween franchise is pretty spotty. So I actually appreciate the approach of wiping the slate clean and just starting over from scratch and saying, let's just try to keep things simple and keep things normal and just bring Michael back 40 years later and cause more havoc. Okay, sure, why not? The movie's tense. It's kind of scary. It's got some well-earned jump scares. Phenomenal music. Holy shit, does this movie have some great music. Michael Myers is badass and scary as fuck in this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode is fantastic. Sure, the ending is just a tad anticlimactic and a little sequel bait ending, but since this movie is getting 2 more sequels, cool. And Halloween Kills so far is looking phenomenal. So, I keep saying that the state of horror is in the toilet right now, which I do think it is, but it's movies like this that just shine bright in a sea of shit. Coming in at number 11 is Aliens. I already talked a whole, for over 2.5 hours with Trev on this movie. Probably as long as the actual movie itself. Aliens is a phenomenal movie. It's one of the greatest sequels ever made. It's one of James Cameron's best movies. It's probably Sigourney Weaver's best performance and best movie overall. Aliens is just a phenomenal fucking movie, and is again one of my favorite movies of all time. Oh, my ass is starting to hurt. Coming in at number 10 is the 2019 remake of Child's Play. This is another one that it just baffles me how somebody can dislike this film, especially with the travesty that was the last 3 Child's Play movies before this, especially the last 2. I think a remake at this point was very much so welcome because of the giant mess that the regular Child's Play franchise is. Though the trailer for this new Chucky TV series looks very promising, still, I actually welcomed this remake. And of course, as I've said before, I saw this in theaters with Meadow and ended up being one of my favorite movies of 2019. I dug the shit out of this movie. Now, I'm not going to say I think Mark Hamill is better than Brad Dourif because he's got 7 other performances to match up to. So I think Mark Hamill needs more time to prove himself as new Chucky, but he does at least give an equally as good performance in a different way to Brad Dourif. The characters are funny. It's obviously 2019, but it still does have a good 80s look and feel to it. I like all the various movie references like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and RoboCop, for example. The kills are great. The characters are funny. It's tense. There's a couple decent jump scares. And it takes a concept of a killer doll and morphs itself into something new, but it still feels like a Child's Play movie. So I absolutely adore this movie. It's, again, one of my favorite remakes of all time. It's my favorite Child's Play film. And it's one of few horror movies. I've said this before. I don't know why, but I guess one of Meadow's favorite horror movie franchises that I've introduced her to is Child's Play. For some reason. I don't know why. I'm happy about it, but I don't know why. She doesn't either, but she just likes Chucky. Coming in at number 9 is Freddy versus Jason. I've said this before. I've gushed about this movie so much. It's the best of both worlds from Nightmare and Friday. The best Freddy, the best Jason, the best characters, the best kills, the best effects, best production value. Just overall, it's the best of both worlds, and I love the crap out of this movie for it. Coming in at number 8 is Sinister. I've talked about this movie quite a bit. It was my very first movie review on this channel. It's now since been deleted, but I still remember the day that I uploaded it. And I even like its sequel a lot more than I used to. It's very flawed, but I still think Sinister 2 is a very okay. I need to get my cushion. Oh, that hurts. Ugh. Oh, that's better. Yeah, Sinister, I think, is one of the best horror movies to come out in the last 10 years. Well, at the time, I still think it's a very good, very, very, very good horror movie. It's one of few horror movies out there that has a bleak ending, which there's another one on this that has an even bleaker ending. Yeah, this one has a bleak ending. One of few that does have a bleak ending that I like. A very interesting horror villain, fantastic music, great acting. Despite the movie actually being kind of cheap, only a $3 million budget, the writer and director of this movie really knew how to use their resources, and they knew how to flesh out a good story in this film. Also, really good kills and really good scares and really good suspense. Yeah, Sinister is one good fucking time. Coming in at number 7 is the original Paranormal Activity. Obviously it's gone down quite a bit. I think I used to put it in like my top 5. Not quite so much now, but Paranormal Activity is still one of my favorites. I remember the day like it was yesterday, the very first time I saw this movie. I was 19 years old. I've told the story a lot. I was 19 years old. I had just bought a 5-pack of the first 5 films, although the 6th one was out at the time, but the first 5 were the only one that I could find. And then I ended up giving that to my brother sometime after I got the 6-pack. But yeah, I watched the movie for the first time when I was 19 years old, unedited, because I saw it on FX beforehand. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. By the time it was over, my grandparents were asleep. The house was dark and quiet. And by the end of it, I was afraid to go to bed. No bullshit. I was very, very, very afraid to go to sleep. I sat in the middle of my bed like I was in Dracula's coffin. And I had a hard time going to sleep that night. So if a movie is able to do that at that age, for me, movie's got some props. Really good scares. Okay, Micah is a fucking idiot douchebag who causes all of the pain and suffering that goes on in this movie. Yes. Still, really good suspense, really good scares, really good tension, really good buildup. Holy shit, is the original Paranormal Activity one phenomenal ass fucking... There's a lot of Paramount movies on this list too. What the fuck? Do I need to like reevaluate Paramount? Because I used to think Paramount's one of my least favorite movie studios. Oh well. But yeah, I love the original Paranormal Activity. I think most of its franchise is fairly decent too. It was just that its last 2 where the ball was really dropped, especially the last one. Which Paranormal Activity is another franchise that I'm considering doing another review of, which I think is warranted since there's a 7th movie coming out sometime soon. And also my review style has changed quite a bit and my equipment has changed quite a bit since I did those original videos. Coming in at number 6, this one might be a little controversial and debatable, but I think this movie actually can be kind of scary when viewed in a certain viewpoint. But I just love this movie so much. Oh, goddamn. I had to include it. Happy Death Day. Good sequel, too. But that one's definitely sci-fi, whereas this one has its feet more firmly planted in horror. And I definitely would say this is probably my number 1 favorite PG-13 rated horror movie of all time. It actually does have some... It has the most amount of gore that it can have in a PG-13 rating, the most amount of swearing and adult. I really do believe the sole problem with this movie is that it's PG-13. If it was rated R, this movie could have been even better. More gore, more kill. Fuck. More gore, more kills, more swearing, more sex. Not even gonna lie about that. It just would have, the PG-13 rating just kind of restrains it from achieving its truest potential. But the filmmakers go as hard as they can with the limits that they're given. And really good story, really good characters. It's really funny, but it also can be tense and kind of scary. But above all else, it's just so entertaining. This is another movie that was introduced to me by my wife. And it's one of those movies I can endlessly rewatch and never get sick of watching. I love this movie so damn much. If I'm in the mood for a horror movie, I can throw this on. If I'm in the mood for a comedy, I can throw this on. If I'm in the totally. If I need something to throw on in the background while I'm doing housework or just doing a project, I can throw this on and be entertained. I absolutely adore this movie, and I think it's definitely one of my favorite films of all time. Crossing my fingers for a third movie. I know a third movie is in production, but that can take years. So let's get a third film and just cap it off nice and easy with a trilogy. And then have a sequel to Freaky, which I guess is also a spinoff of this as well. And all right, top 5 territory. We're going to have some big heavy hitters for me. At number 5 is the third tie in this fucking list. It, 2017 and 2019. Just rewatched both of these movies not too long ago. And you know what? I still love them. 2 movies that one, I have pleasant memories with my brother, the first one. But I have a lot of fond memories watching this with my wife. Hell, we just threw this on 3 or 4 times over the years just to watch it for fun. But also on our 3 or 4 month anniversary, yes, we even did that. Shut up, I'm corny. We made a date night where we got some pizza and some drinks and threw this movie on and had a blast watching it together. And It Chapter 2, me and my wife saw in theaters opening day. And just dug the fuck out of it. I think It Chapter 1 and 2 are equally as good. And for future giant Stephen King books like this, well, they are doing that with The Stand. I guess it's a Showtime miniseries. But for a lot of giant Stephen King books, like the Dark Tower series, for example, this is how you adapt a Stephen King movie, goddammit. You don't condense a 1,200-page book into a 90-minute movie. Looking at you, fucking Dark Tower movie. This is how you do it. You break it up into parts and you make the movie long. The first movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes. The second one is 2 hours and 50 minutes, which fuck you, certain individual that says It Chapter 2 sucks. Seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you? Anybody who says It Chapter 2 is a bad movie, go sit in your angry masturbation corner, shut your fucking mouth with staples and rusty nails, and keep your shitty ass opinions to yourself, because nobody wants to hear them. Straight up. Fuck you. Obviously, I'm very passionate about these movies. Though I will say, I have a couple nitpicks with It Chapter 2. Mainly, I think Jessica Chastain either could have been a different actress or she could have been directed better, because I do think Jessica Chastain is the weakest adult version of the Losers Club. She just looks bored most of the movie. I don't know if that was her acting or how she was directed or if she really was bored, but she always just stuck out to me as a sore thumb. But that's a nitpick. I still love both of these movies equally. I think they're both equally good movies. They're endlessly fucking entertaining, endlessly quotable. And there you can definitely tell, obviously, Andy Muschietti is a Stephen King fan, and he tried his damnedest to make these movies as good as possible. I think he succeeded. Give Andy Muschietti some more commissions to make more Stephen King movies. Let him do The Stand. Let him do The Mist. Not to say that the original Mist is bad, but imagine a Mist movie done by Andy Muschietti. Let him do another version of Misery. Let him do another version of Christine. Let him do another version of The Shining. Speaking of The Shining, we're kicking off a trilogy of Stephen King adaptations here with number 4, Dr. Sleep. Oh my God. Dr. Sleep is one phenomenal ass fucking movie. Hang on one second. What? Okay, I'm doing a video right now. Salo. Yeah. Check your phone. I guess your mom's trying to get a hold of you. Okay, excuse me, guys. Family life. Anyway, so Dr. Sleep, one of, again, few horror movies that me and Meadow can watch together where we can watch together and just be endlessly entertained. Meadow, fun fact, actually considers Dr. Sleep to be her third favorite. No, it's tied with Christopher Robin as her second favorite movie of all time. For anyone who's going to ask, her favorite movie of all time is Paul. Whatever, Paul's funny. But Dr. Sleep, holy shit. I remember when this movie was coming out, I had no interest. Had no interest at all because it's a sequel to The Shining. I've said before, I don't like The Shining. I don't like it at all. I think it's, I don't like Stanley Kubrick. I think it's boring. It's dull. It's slow. I don't like The Shining. It's also very different from the book, and I agree with Stephen King. I think it's crap. For those of you who don't know, that Stephen King loathes the 1980 version of The Shining. That's why he was very involved in the 1997 Shining miniseries. But I guess I have to give the original Shining a little bit of props because without it, wouldn't have had Dr. Sleep. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal fucking movie. Watch the director's cut. That is the one that I always talk about. I don't even acknowledge the theatrical cut. The director's cut, 3 hours long, totally worth it. Absolutely worth the 3-hour runtime. It feels like a great, solid epic of a horror movie. And also let Mike Flanagan, who directed this movie, direct some more Stephen King movies. Let him do The Mist or Christine, or just let him. Ooh, I think he'd do a really good Misery. Yeah, I think that would be a good one for him. But anyway, just check the. I fucking love this movie. Great performances, really good scares, great music. I love the story. I love its originality. Dr. Sleep is just a modern masterpiece. Why did this movie have to flop? And why did the 2019 Pet Sematary have to make more than this movie? Why did that piece of shit have to leave this movie in the dust? But thankfully, at least people say, oh yeah, the 2019 Pet Sematary is crap, but Dr. Sleep is great. Fuck you, Paramount, for making a piece of shit remake. And coming in at number 3, the final Stephen King movie on this list, The Mist from 2007. I love showing this movie to newcomers that have never seen this movie before, just so that I can watch how they react to this movie's ending. Probably the most fucked up, bleak ending I've ever seen to any horror movie. But I also love it because it's fucked up. But you know what? It's very admirable that the director had the balls to pull this off. Now, there are some people that don't like it, Meadow included. I showed her this movie. She thought it was the most depressing thing she ever saw in her life. And I get it. Yes, it is depressing, but it's ballsy, and you really got to respect that. Aside from that, though, really strong characters, really good special effects, really good scares, really good characters, great music, great tension. The Mist is a fucking masterpiece, phenomenal movie, in my opinion. And honestly, oh man, see, I don't really know. I don't really know what my favorite of Frank Darabont's 3 Stephen King movies are. Because it's either this or oh fuck, I don't know. Because The Green Mile is really good too. I don't know. I'll have to answer that at a later date. But all 3 of Frank Darabont's Stephen King movies are phenomenal films. But anyway, so yeah, The Mist is a phenomenal fucking movie. At number 2, An American Werewolf in London. At one point, I actually did say this is my favorite horror film of all time. And then I used to say Halloween's one of my favorites. The original Halloween. An American Werewolf in London has gone down slightly. Now, if you watch my channel, you'll know what number 1 is, but bear with me. But that doesn't take anything away from this movie. It's an absolutely phenomenal horror movie. It's got fantastic, phenomenal special effects, great kills, great characters, an amazing soundtrack. Yes, it's a typical werewolf story, but damn it, it's just done so well you don't even notice it. I think this is the greatest werewolf movie ever made, bar none. A lot of people say the original Wolfman is the greatest. It's a good movie, but no, it's the first of its kind. Nothing, in my opinion, well, not really, but a lot of things that are the first of their kind don't land everything perfectly. And this movie nails everything perfectly. There's not a damn thing wrong with this movie that I can point out. Sure, there's a nitpick here and there, but still, An American Werewolf in London is an absolutely phenomenal movie. Slight shame that was it John Landis? Yeah, I think it was John Landis. Had to kind of edit this movie. Well, not really edit, but change his script around because apparently it's even more violent and fucked up. But because that just makes me curious. Well, what was the original vision? But still, in its current form, An American Werewolf in London is an absolutely phenomenal movie. Did not need a sequel. The greatest werewolf movie of all time. Some of the greatest effects of all time. Oh, this movie is just absolutely fantastic. And of course, coming in at number 1, what the hell else do you think it is? John Carpenter's The Thing. Oh, rewatched this movie not too long ago myself. It's still phenomenal. And I think my review with Trev has got to be my favorite review that I've ever done on this channel. You can review a lot of these movies on my list too, like The Blob or Fright Night or The Mist and It Chapter 1 and 2. Yeah, great effects, fantastic fucking effects, great characters, great scares, great suspense, a great story that you can take at face value, but if you look deeper, you can make up your own interpretation however you want. And it's fun to discuss this movie in depth with other people who are fans, as me and Trev have done multiple times, actually. Nothing more than I need to say. If you want to know my full thoughts, watch my review of this movie. The Thing is just an absolutely phenomenal movie. Ironically, I'm wearing a shirt that's probably my least favorite horror movie of all time by the same director, and he gave me my number 1 favorite horror film of all time, even though I've explicitly stated not a fan of John Carpenter. I know, it's such a big irony. So that'll about do it. Once again, to reiterate my honorable mentions, Doom 2005, Underwater, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Candyman, The Mummy from 1932, The Invisible Man 2020 remake, and the entire Saw franchise are my honorable mentions. And for the actual list, it's Fright Night, Friday the 13th, 09, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the 1988 remake of The Blob, 30 Days of Night, Wolfman 2010, A Quiet Place Parts 1 and 2, both Rob Zombie's Halloween movies, Halloween 2018, Aliens, Child's Play 2019, Freddy vs. Jason, Sinister, Paranormal Activity, Happy Death Day, It Chapters 1 and 2, Doctor Sleep, The Mist, An American Werewolf in London, and finally, John Carpenter's The Thing. Those are all of my favorite horror movies, and this video was a lot of fun to do. I wish I could have had a guest, but whatever. I'm very proud of this video. So, yep, post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. That's all I have to say. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Anyone in the future who commented on my chat, I can't see my chat right now, so I can't see what you said. So leave your comments down below, please. And leave me your top 20 lists because I'd love to hear them. Let's get a good discussion going in the comments. And as always, go out and watch some horror movies, even though it's not even remotely October. I like to consider August and especially September and even November just a spooky Halloween season. So go out and watch some horror movies, make your own horror movie lists, and just do it safe and have fun doing it. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.